Howdy folks, welcome to another beautiful afternoon. Well, looks like evening, but it is still afternoon. It's still 7 o'clock, you know. Not too long ago, the sun was quite high at this time still. But anyway, today I'm running a little late because I did my first day at the gym. So yay me and Belinda went and we did our first day at the gym. Now only 29 more to go. Anyway, today I want to talk about housing, cost of housing. I read an article actually about it, and you know, the problem that young people face in Canada across the board, basically all the big cities, Toronto, Vancouver. Vancouver is obviously by far the worst. And the article was all about how hard it would be for somebody to actually purchase a house, because the fact of the matter is that in Canada, if you want to buy a house in Vancouver, there's a couple of things that you need to, there's quite a big deposit. Now the deposit kind of runs up, if the property that you're buying is less than 500,000, then you can put down a 5% deposit. If the property is between 500,000 and $1 million, you need to put down 5% on the first 500,000 and 10% on the other 500,000. So in other words, to buy a property of $1 million, you need to put down $65,000 deposit in cash. And anything over $1 million, you have to put down a 20% deposit across the board. That's it. You got to put down a 20% deposit. So, I mean, if you're buying a house for 1.1 million, you have to put down $220,000 in cash as a deposit. And you can't go and borrow that. You're not allowed to borrow it. There's a couple of places where you can kind of borrow it, but generally you're supposed to have it in cash. So in other words, for a young person that wants to buy a house here eventually, or a property here, what they need to do is they need to, number one, pay the rent and pay their living expenses, and then save up enough money for the deposit, because that's where the big issue lies, paying the deposit. And they were estimating that for somebody to do that, even a couple, you need to earn at least about $6,000 a month, each of you, in order to save up enough money. I mean, it's actually ridiculous numbers. It's like a little bit crazy, because remember, of course, if you're earning $6,000 a month in salary, there's taxes and other stuff that comes off of there. I mean, you know, you're probably looking at about 20-30% already going off to taxes and pension and things like that. I don't have the exact numbers here. Anyway, long story short, so it came out that the whole article was about how hard it would be for young people now entering the job market to actually own a home. And for that reason, a lot of people are actually living with their parents till well in their 30s. To try and save up for money. And they just did a survey where a lot of the people, a lot of the youngsters, millennials and Gen Z, said the only way that they would ever be able to own a property is if they inherit it from their parents, or they get a big enough inheritance from their parents to put down the deposit, because that's the big problem, the deposit. Now, one thing that Canada does have is it's got a first-time home buyer incentive. So if you're buying a house, if you're buying your first house in Canada, the government will give you 5% towards the value of the property if it's an existing home, and 5 to 10% if it's a new off-plan home. So what they would do is they would give you that money, and you don't have to pay it back right away. You can pay it back in 25 years or as soon as you sell the property. So basically what they're actually doing is they're buying 5%. How it works is they kind of actually buying 5% equity in your home. They're buying 5% and you own 95 and they own 5. So if you sell your home, you got to give them 5% of the purchase price back. So in other words, they take the profit. If you sell your home for less than you bought it, they also take the knock on it. So there's no interest or anything, it's just that. Although I think they made a new change recently where they said they will cap it at 8% per year, not compound interest. So they calculate interest a maximum of 8% per year. So if your property increases in value by much more than that and you sell it, you just have to pay them 8% per year. But it's not compound. So it's not 8% on 8% on 8%. It's every year, it's just 8% on the original amount. So that is there. definitely something that's helpful. But yeah, the big problem is saving up enough money for the deposit. One other thing is, if you're only paying the smaller deposit, so say you're buying a property for under 500,000 and you only pay a 5% deposit, what you actually then have to do is take out mortgage insurance, which is probably anywhere between 2 and 5%, depending on your affordability and your credit records and stuff like that, because the banks doesn't actually want to lend you anything without a 20% deposit. So if you can't put down a 20% deposit, if you only put down a 5% deposit, and you're only allowed to do that on properties less than $500,000, then you also have to take out mortgage insurance that will cover the bank if you default. Anyway, lots of numbers, lots of things. I'm going to call it a day. It's been a long one. There's something interesting coming. I'm working on a project because, we've been dealing with so many South Africans asking questions about what's going on and where's all the stores and how does everything work. So there's a big announcement coming soon, but we are going to set up a website where we can help people with all of that information. One single place, so you don't have to watch 300 of my videos on YouTube to see everything. We are going to organize it a lot nicer so it's more clear for people to find information about being a South African in Vancouver. All right, folks, you all must have a good one. Cheers.